In this video, I'm going to be reviewing a retreat held by shaman Don Gino Chaka Runa, or Gino for short. Gino is a Peruvian shaman who puts on retreats in Europe and South America, and I attended his group in Switzerland on 2 different occasions during 2018. So what did I think of his retreat? Yeah, let's find out. First, a bit of background. Gino is a shaman originally from the Peruvian highlands, but he was also trained under ayahuasca maestros in the jungle. As well as hosting retreats in his native Peru, he also does annual tours of Europe and puts on retreats in various countries like Switzerland, which is where I attended. I became aware of him when one of my friends did an interview with Gino, which I'll post a link to in the description below. And shortly after that, and based on my friend's recommendation, I signed up to do what would become the first of 2 retreats that I did with Gino. On each occasion, I did 2 nights at a cost of around €500 each time. And so I ended up sitting through 4 ayahuasca ceremonies in totality, 2 in the spring and 2 in the autumn. Now this has been a tricky one for me to review because overall I like Gino and appreciate what he's doing, but there was a couple of things here that just did not work for me. Now a lot of this is just down to my personal preferences in what I'm looking for in an ayahuasca ceremony, but still I can only base these reviews on my own experiences. So here's my breakdown, starting with the facilities. As I mentioned, Gino's retreats in Europe are a kind of ayahuasca on tour style event, so he doesn't actually own any specialised facilities of his own, but instead he puts on retreats at pre-existing venues. Both events that I attended were held at the same location, which it must be said was pretty awesome. The retreat was held in a fairly isolated villa in a forest setting at the top of a mountain, so yeah, no complaints at all with the setting. Now for the ceremonial space, there was this huge yurt which was decorated with Peruvian tapestries and with the participants' mats arranged around the edge. So this was the closest thing to an actual Maloka I've seen outside of South America, and it was great. The only downside I could mention is that due to it being outdoors and being up in the Alps, it got really cold at night, so you needed a lot of layers to keep warm. Not everything was provided though, so you needed to bring your own mat, sleeping bag and pillows, which gave it more of a kind of camping trip kind of vibe. There were a few beds with a dorm style room in the villa, but it was only 4 or 5 beds between a group of like 20 plus people, so most people just had to sleep in the yurt. And also there was just 1 small bathroom for the entire group. Now this was fine with me because I love camping and bringing my own gear is fine for ceremony, but for €500 I would have expected a bit more, like an actual bed I can go and sleep in afterwards. By comparison, I did another camping style retreat with a different shaman, which was a similar setup, and that was just €200 for the weekend. So yeah, the cost here seems a bit out of whack with what's on offer. One of the big plus points of working with Gino is that he speaks perfect English, which is not the norm at all for a Peruvian shaman. And this makes him extremely accessible to Westerners like me, which is huge. Instead of everything going through a translator, you can just walk up and ask him whatever you want. It just makes communication so much more effective. Gino himself is a nice enough guy and he has plenty of interesting stuff to say on the topic of ayahuasca. He is, however, rather aloof, which I find a bit off-putting. Now, I've been to a number of different retreats and worked with a number of different shaman, and they all insisted on talking to me beforehand, understanding my intention, why I was there, and being able to offer guidance for the coming ceremony. This is what I expect from a shaman. I expect them to be invested in me. I expect them to give a shit. And that's just not what I got from Gino. He didn't make any time for talking to me beforehand. I know it wasn't just me because the person I was traveling with also got similar treatment. When I specifically asked if I could talk to him, then he seemed put out and like he was trying to close the conversation down as quickly as possible, which left me feeling like a nuisance, like I was bothering him, like I was a burden. Now some people might be okay with this kind of hands-off style, but I prefer a sense that the shaman has an investment in my well-being. On both occasions, when going to these retreats, I was dealing with some heavy shit. But Gino just didn't seem that interested and was actually kind of dismissive. Aside from Gino himself, there was an entourage of 4 facilitators who assisted with the ceremonies, which I thought was a good amount for the number of participants, which is around about 25 people per night. Yeah, not a lot to say here because there wasn't any kind of additional activities during the day. And on a couple of occasions, there wasn't even a group show. The agenda was basically ceremony in the evening. And that was it. And maybe that's what you're looking for. For somebody who wants that very stripped down, basic, hands-off retreat, this could be what you're looking for. But again, I don't think the price matches what's offered. The ceremonies themselves are very well organised and are conducted in a traditional Peruvian style of the Sacred Valley, which is different to the Shipibo style, which is my own personal preference. The Icaros that Gino sings seems to follow a very similar setlist each night, so the songs very quickly became predictable, and by the third night I knew exactly what song was coming, and this made it feel slightly repetitive. Now this is not to say that I disliked Gino's songs, not at all. He sings really well and he clearly has a passion for his craft. He involves his entourage in the singing and brings in other musical instruments and tribal drumming, so it's a really eclectic and energetic ceremony. At the end, Gino encourages anyone in the group to share their own talents, so if there's any musicians or vocalists, they might do a song or two. Now I thought this was a really nice touch, but it could drag the night on for hours, so sometimes all you wanted to do was go to sleep and then someone chimes in with another song. But all in all, I enjoyed Gino's take on the ayahuasca ceremony. Now about the medicine. As I mentioned, I've been in 4 ceremonies with Gino across 2 different retreats, and I have to say that I do not think Gino's medicine is particularly strong. On one night I even drank 3 cups and I just didn't feel much at all. Now I will say that I do seem to have quite a high tolerance for ayahuasca, and I'm also perfectly happy to accept that for whatever reason, maybe it just wasn't my night on each of these 4 occasions. What I will say though is that for the 4 ceremonies I did with Gino, it was the least potent of all the ayahuasca ceremonies I have ever done, which leads me to think, with no disrespect intended, that Gino just isn't the right maestro for me. And that's fine. People follow their own paths to different healers. I'll continue on my journey, and I honestly wish Gino all the best on his. Okay, so after everything I've said, would I recommend this retreat? And here is where it gets tricky for me. Probably not. It's hard to recommend it based on the things I didn't like and the cost, when other retreats in Europe are offering a better value service for the same kind of money and are much more hands-on with helping you through the experience. Now, that isn't to say that this organisation is bad. I mean, this definitely isn't the same kind of shit show I'm talking about with my review of Inner Mastery, and there are certainly some big positives in this group. The organisation of the ceremonies is superb, the settings are beautiful, and although there are a few things that didn't gel with me, I can accept that's possibly down to my own personal preferences. I do think Gino could have been more attentive, but maybe that's just not his style. But for me, he was just way too standoffish, grumpy. It seemed like he wasn't interested in anything outside of the actual ceremony. And if you're okay with that, then it's fine. But for the same kind of money as what Gino charges, you could go to like Ayahuasca Spirit, where they're just so much more hands-on, where you have private rooms, daily activities like yoga and kambo, and just a much better experience for the same money. Now I realise that some people are going to think it's vulgar to be talking about money and cost comparisons in the context of healing, but the reality is that Gino is putting on a service, and at the money he charges, it's a premium service. It's not just some favour that he's doing out the kindness of his heart, so it's perfectly reasonable to compare these guys against each other. Now if someone has loyalty to Gino and that alone is worth the price, then that's up to them. But what I'm trying to do here is provide information to try and help people decide if this is the right retreat for them. And I think there's a lot of room for improvement here, particularly compared to the competition. But like I said, if you're looking for a basic stripped down retreat, this could be the one for you. So to close this up, I personally won't look to do another retreat with Gino. The style of retreat just wasn't my cup of tea, and for whatever reason, I could not connect with his medicine. That said, I think he's legit, he puts on a good ceremony, and I wish him all the best. But when I compare the value in what he does compared to what other organisations are doing in Europe, yeah, then I think he needs to up his game and definitely improve his people skills. Okay, so that's it for this review. As always, thanks for watching. Check out some of the other videos on my channel, and if you like the content here on Adeptus Psychonautica, then like this video and subscribe to keep up to date with the new content. So that's it for now, and I'll see you guys next time.